Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Sandhya Arvinda Gunnal, Associate Professor from Department of Anatomy, Rural Medical College, PIMS, Loni. Today I'm presenting very important and interesting topic, that is the blood supply of brain. Brain is the governing center of the body. It is only 2% of the body weight. Though it is so, it requires 20% of the oxygen and 1/5 of the cardiac output. Though the higher requirements are there, blood supply to the brain is carried by only two pair of vessels, a pair of internal carotid artery and a pair of vertebral artery. Okay, so here this is the internal carotid artery and this is the vertebral artery. Both the pairs enter within the cranial cavity and in the interpeduncular fossa they form a circular arterial channel called as circulus arteriosus. Okay, so here this is the circulus arteriosus in the interpeduncular fossa. This circulus arteriosus and its boundaries were described first by the scientist Thomas Willis in 1664, and thereafter this circulus arteriosus is commonly called as the circle of Willis. Circle of Willis has the great functional significance that it maintains the steady and constant supply to the brain. This arterial circle equalizes the pressure of the blood flow to the two sides of the brain as it is the main collateral channel. If one of the major arteries forming the circle of Willis is blocked, then the area to be supplied by that artery will be compensated by the opposite sided artery. Thus, the circle of Willis provides the various alternative routes for the collateral circulation. It is called as the arterial traffic circle. It's like the arterial traffic circle. The boundaries of the circulus arteriosus or the circle of Willis. The anterior boundary of the circle of Willis is formed by the anterior communicating artery. Okay, so here in the picture, this is the anterior boundary of the circle of Willis. On either side, anterolaterally here, the boundaries is formed by the anterior cerebral artery. This is the pre-communicating segment of the anterior cerebral artery. So it is called as A1. So here this is the anterior cerebral artery and this is the pre-communicating segment before this communication. So here this is the pre-communicating segment forming the anterolateral boundary of the circle of Willis. Posterolaterally, on either side here, there is the posterior communicating artery. This is the posterior communicating artery. Posteriorly, there are the posterior cerebral artery. Again here, there is the pre-communicating segment of the posterior cerebral artery. Here, this is a pre-communicating segment of the posterior cerebral artery. So, it completes the circle of Willis. We'll see again here what are the boundaries of the circle of Willis. Here, this is the circle of Willis. Here, it is a polygonal channel. So, here, this is the anterior boundary of the circle of Willis. It is formed by the anterior communicating artery. Anterolaterally, there are the anterior cerebral arteries, the pre-communicating segment. Laterally, on either side, there are the posterior communicating arteries, and posterolaterally here on either side of the midline there are the posterior cerebral arteries, the pre-communicating segments of the posterior cerebral artery. Here before the communication, here is the pre-communicating segment, this is the post-communicating segment. Okay, so this is the circle of Willis. On either side, on the either corner of the circle of Willis, here the lateral corner of the circle of Willis, here this is the internal carotid artery. The internal carotid artery, it ramifies here, it terminates here, and its branches take part in the formation of the circle of Willis. But note that here this is the middle cerebral artery, that the middle cerebral artery doesn't contribute in the formation of the circle of Willis. Posterior corner here, there is the presence of this basilar artery. Okay, so here this is the circle of Willis. It is bounded anteriorly by the anterior communicating artery, anterolaterally by the anterior cerebral artery, posterolaterally posterior communicating artery, and here posteriorly on either side there are the posterior cerebral arteries. Posterior corner there is the termination of the basilar artery. Okay, so we have seen here the boundaries of the circle of Willis. These circle of Willis, it gives number of branches present here. So these are the cortical branches, and here some of the few unnamed smaller branches present here. These smaller branches, these are called as central arteries or called as perforators. Okay, so here this is the circle of Willis. It gives these two types of branches, the cortical branches and that of the central branches. With its branches, it supplies the brain. Okay, so here this is the inferior surface of the brain. In the inferior surface of the brain, here in the center, there is the depression called as interpeduncular fossa. The interpeduncular fossa is surrounded by this circular arterial channel called as circulus arteriosus, or commonly called as the circle of Willis. Here, these are the boundaries of the circle of Willis here. And these are giving here number of branches. Here these anterior cerebral arteries are going above, laterally here the middle cerebral arteries are there, posteriorly here the basilar artery, and it is terminating here into the posterior cerebral arteries. Okay, so here this is the circle of Willis. Okay, so circle of Willis, it surrounds here this interpeduncular fossa. In the anterior median plane, see that what are the structures present there. Here this is the optic chiasma. On either side here, there are the optic tracts present there. Okay, so optic tract, optic chiasma are there. Here in the median plate, just behind that, there is the tuber cinereum. After that, here there are the mammillary bodies, and here there is the posterior perforated substance. The posterior perforated substance on either side, it is bounded by the cerebral peduncles, and that's why it is called as the interpeduncular fossa. Here this is the part of the midbrain seen here. Okay, so this circle of Willis, it gives number of branches, the number of central branches as well as the number of cortical branches, and it supplies the complete brain. So when we trace these blood vessels by removing the substance of the brain, that it will look like this. This is the arterial network which is supplying the brain. In the center here, there is the presence of the circle of Willis, and these are the branches arising from the circle of Willis. So today we want to study all these branches present there arising from the circle of Willis. So it looks like difficult, but when we want to trace this, we'll go to the base, or we'll go to the origin. So here the circle of Willis is formed by this internal carotid artery, vertebral artery and basilar artery. Vertebral artery joins together and forms the basilar artery. Okay, so these are the three main sources which are forming the circle of Willis. Okay, so to find out or to study these branches arising from the circle of Willis, we will just study the branches of the internal carotid artery, branches from the vertebral artery, and branches of the basilar artery. That will be giving here what are the different branches arising from the circle of Willis. Okay, so each main branch, that is these three branches present there, internal carotid, vertebral and basilar artery, they give the 5 branches. So there are the 5 branches arising from the internal carotid artery, 5 branches arising from the vertebral artery, and 5 branches arising from the basilar artery. Okay, so these are the basic 5 branches, 5 set of branches arising from this main arteries present there. So we'll study these 15 branches present there arising from this internal carotid artery, vertebral artery and the basilar artery. Okay, so we'll discuss one by one here. First we'll discuss about the internal carotid artery. Okay, so this is the arterial network showing the different arteries. So we have to find out here where is the internal carotid artery. Okay, so in this picture here, this is the internal carotid artery. Okay, so this internal carotid artery, it takes origin from the common carotid artery. Okay, so this is the internal carotid artery, it is running upward. We'll see this internal carotid artery, its course in the next diagram present there. Here in this arterial network we have seen the internal carotid artery. Here it is going to the lateral corner of the circle of Willis where it terminates. Okay, so in this picture we'll see the parts of the internal carotid artery. Here this is the internal carotid artery. Okay, so this internal carotid artery, these are the parts of the internal carotid artery. The first one, that is the cervical part, that is present in the neck. This is the petrous part, cavernous part and the cerebral part. These are the 4 parts of the internal carotid artery. Okay, so this internal carotid artery, here this internal carotid artery, it arises from this common carotid artery. It arises at the level of the upper border of this thyroid cartilage. Okay, so at the upper border of the thyroid cartilage, the common carotid artery divides into the internal carotid artery and the external carotid artery. External carotid artery, just after its origin, it leaves the carotid sheath and ramifies into branches and supplies the number of structures in the neck. So we have studied this external carotid artery. Then we have seen that the internal carotid artery, it doesn't give any branch. It is the continuation of this common carotid artery. It just runs upwards within the carotid sheath and it reaches here at the base of the cranial cavity, here at the carotid canal. Okay, so up to here, this is the cervical part of the internal carotid artery. Okay, so afterwards here, the internal carotid artery, it passes through the petrous part of the temporal bone via the carotid canal. Okay, so this is the second part of the internal carotid artery. So internal carotid artery enters within the cranial cavity via the carotid canal, which is present in the petrous temporal bone. This carotid canal, it opens at the upper part of the foramen lacerum, and at this foramen lacerum, this artery, it forms its third part, that is called as the cavernous part. As soon as this artery appears here in the upper part of the foramen lacerum, it traverses here in this cavernous part. There is somewhat the smaller part on either side of the body of the sphenoid, and this is the cavernous part of the internal carotid artery. Afterwards here, the artery, it turns here and it forms the S-shaped curve. Okay, so this part present here, that is the fourth part, that is called as the cerebral part of the internal carotid artery. This S-shaped part present here, it is obvious when we see the X-rays passing through this, or we'll study the angiography. In that we can find out this S-shaped part of the S-shape of the internal carotid artery, that is called as the carotid siphon. Okay, so this is the carotid siphon. Afterwards here, this internal carotid artery, it reaches here at the lateral corner of the interpedunculair fossa by piercing the arachnoid matter, and then the internal carotid artery terminates there. Okay, so we have seen all these different parts Here we have seen the cervical part during the carotid triangle. We have seen here the carotid canal, the part present in the carotid canal, the pitreous part and the cavernous part during the cavernous sinus. And in today's lecture, we'll just concentrate on this cerebral part of the internal carotid artery. Okay, so the cerebral part of the internal carotid artery, it gives these 5 branches. This is the anterior cerebral artery. This is the anterior cerebral artery. Here is the internal carotid artery. The internal carotid artery comes over here and it gives here the 5 different parts. This is the cerebral part and these are the 5 branches arising from the cerebral part. So we have seen here the first branch here. This is the anterior cerebral artery. This is the second branch called as middle cerebral artery. This is the middle cerebral artery. These 2 branches, these are the terminal branches of the internal carotid artery. The internal carotid artery comes here, it terminates here into this anterior cerebral artery, a smaller terminal branch, and here the larger terminal branch, that is the middle cerebral artery. The next artery present here, that is the anterior choroidal artery. This small artery present here, that is the anterior choroidal artery. Next one, that is the posterior communicating artery. Here this is the posterior communicating artery. This artery present here is the posterior communicating artery. The last one, that is the ophthalmic artery. Here this small artery seen here, this artery present here, that is the ophthalmic artery. Out of these 5 branches, we have already studied this ophthalmic artery during the structures within the orbit. So this ophthalmic artery, it passes through the optic canal along with the optic nerve and it supplies the contents of the orbit. Okay, so we have already studied this. So excluding this branch, we'll study all these branches arising from the internal carotid artery one by one. So first we'll discuss about the anterior cerebral artery. Okay, so we'll study the anterior cerebral artery. So here in the picture, this is the anterior cerebral artery. The anterior cerebral artery is the smaller terminal branch arising from the internal carotid artery. It runs forwards and medially. The internal carotid artery, it runs forwards and medially. It runs towards the median plane. It runs towards the median plane and it communicates with the opposite side. Okay, so we'll see here the anterior cerebral artery. See here the anterior cerebral artery, how it is going here. This is the anterior cerebral artery. It runs forwards and medially towards the great longitudinal fissure of the brain. Median longitudinal fissure of the brain. Okay, so this is the anterior cerebral artery. It runs forwards and medially. It passes here through the great longitudinal fissure of the brain and by passing through, it supplies most of the surface of the medial surface of the cerebrum over the corpus callosum. Okay, so the anterior cerebral artery, while going here, the anteromedially, it communicates here with the opposite side by the transverse communicating channel called as the anterior communicating artery. This is the anterior communicating artery. This is the anterior cerebral artery. It passes here towards the median longitudinal fissure of the brain. While passing here, it communicates with the opposite side by the anterior communicating artery. Due to this anterior communicating artery, there are the 2 parts of the anterior cerebral artery. This part present here, that is the pre-communicating segment of the anterior cerebral artery, and the part distal to the anterior communicating artery is called as the post-communicating segment of the anterior cerebral artery. Okay, so these are the 2 segments of the anterior cerebral artery. This pre-communicating segment, it forms the boundary of the circle of Willis, while this post-communicating segment, it is over the corpus callosum to supply the medial surface of the 2 cerebral hemispheres. Okay, so here this is the anterior cerebral artery, and here is the smaller communication in between the two called as anterior communicating artery. Now this anterior cerebral artery, it gives various branches. These smaller branches, these are the central branches, and there are the cortical branches. This is one of the large central branch seen here. So we'll see that what are the branches arising from the anterior cerebral artery. Okay, so here in the picture, here this is the anterior cerebral artery. This is the internal carotid artery. This is the smaller terminal branch, that is the anterior cerebral artery. It runs forwards and medially towards the great longitudinal fissure, median fissure of the brain. Here, while passing here, this is the smaller channel present here, that is the transverse communicating channel called as anterior communicating artery. Afterwards, the artery runs here over the corpus callosum. This white is the corpus callosum. So over the corpus callosum here, this artery ramifies into number of branches. Here, this is the anterior communicating artery. Just in front of this genu of the corpus callosum here, the artery turns upwards and towards the median plane. Okay, so branches of the anterior cerebral artery, these are the recurrent artery of Hubner. Okay, so this recurrent artery of Hubner, it is the central artery. It is the larger central branch arising from this anterior cerebral artery. Rest of the branches, these are the cortical branches. Okay, rest of the branches, these are the cortical branches. So this branch present here is the orbital branches. Smaller branches are there, that's why orbital branches. The next is the frontopolar branch, callosomarginal branch, and the pericallosal branch. Okay, so these are the branches arising from the anterior cerebral artery. Now here this is the medial view of the cerebral hemisphere. So here in that one can find out here, this is the corpus callosum, isn't it? This is the corpus callosum. We'll zoom it here. This is the corpus callosum. Okay, so here this is the anterior cerebral artery. This is the anterior cerebral artery. It arises over here, then it passes here towards the median plane. It passes here, it turns, it takes a turn just in front of this genu of the corpus callosum, and then it runs over the corpus callosum. Okay, so here at this side there is a smaller branch communication, that is the anterior communicating artery. Afterwards here these cortical branches are there. This is the orbital branch, or the orbital, smaller orbital branches are there. This is the frontopolar branch. This branch is the callosomarginal branch, and this branch just along with this corpus callosum is called as the pericallosal artery. Okay, so anterior cerebral artery, it is up to here. At this site it terminates here by giving this callosomarginal branch and the pericallosal branch. Okay, so these are the branches arising from the anterior cerebral artery: orbital branches, frontopolar branches, callosomarginal branch, and the pericallosal branch. This recurrent artery of Hubner, it is the central artery present there. It again passes backwards, and it is along with the other central branches to pierce the anterior perforated substance. The other cortical branches, these other branches, the cortical branches, they supply here the medial surface of the cerebrum. Okay, so we have seen the cerebral surface. Here this is the medial surface of the cerebrum. So whatever this highlighted portion, this dark portion present here of the medial surface, it is supplied by these cortical branches arising from the anterior cerebral artery. Okay, so we'll particularly see that what are the surface area supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. Okay, so we are knowing that these are the different surfaces of the cerebral hemisphere. This is the superolateral surface, this is the medial surface, and this is the inferior surface. Okay, so on this superolateral surface, this area, this small strip along with the superomedial border, it is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. This is the area, pink area, supplied by the anterior cerebral artery on the superolateral surface. Here on the medial surface, the most of the medial surface, it is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. It is anterior to this precuneus. Up to this parietal lobe here, there is the area supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. On the inferior surface here, this gyrus rectus, it is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. Okay, so that is the supply of the anterior cerebral artery to the cerebrum. Most of the medial surface, on the superolateral surface, just a strip along with the superomedial border up to the parieto-occipital sulcus is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery, and on the inferior surface just a smaller part of the orbital surface, that is the gyrus rectus, is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. Okay, so cortical arteries supply the cerebral cortex, and these are the central arteries present there. The central arteries, the one of the larger central branch, that is called as the recurrent artery of Hubner, and there are some smaller central branches are seen. So here in the picture, this is the anterior cerebral artery, and here this is the smaller branch. It is coming reverse back and piercing here the anterior perforated substance. So here this is the recurrent artery of Hubner. Along with that, there are another smaller branches. These are called as central branches or called as perforators. These perforating branches or the central branches of the anterior cerebral artery supplies the caudate nucleus, anterior part of the lentiform nucleus, and the anterior limb of the internal capsule. Okay, so we have seen the anterior cerebral artery. I will discuss about the middle cerebral artery. So in the picture here, this is the middle cerebral artery. Middle cerebral artery is the larger terminal branch arising from the internal carotid artery. It just runs laterally in the sylvian fissure, in the lateral sulcus of the brain. Okay, so here this is the middle cerebral artery running in the lateral sulcus, and here at this site it gives number of branches present here passing upwards and downwards, and it supplies the most of the superolateral surface. It gives number of branches, it gives here some of the central branches, then there are the cortical branches present here. Okay, so we'll study here what are the branches arising from the middle cerebral artery. Okay, so these are the cortical branches arising from the middle cerebral artery. Okay, so see that here there are number of branches, about 8 to 10 branches are there arising from the middle cerebral artery. Okay, so you have to just remember here, you have to mug up all the branches arising from these five sets, that is from the internal carotid artery, basilar artery, and the vertebral artery. These branches, that is up to you, you have to remember it or not. So here these branches, cortical branches present here. This is the anterior temporal branch. See that here, this is the middle cerebral artery. It is running in the lateral fissure. It is giving here the branch running downward to the temporal lobe, that is the anterior temporal branch. Then here it gives number of branches called as orbital branches. Here the orbital branches are there. Then here the pre-Rolandic or the pre-central branch. So here this is the central sulcus. So here this is the pre-Rolandic branch. The pre-central branch present there. In the central sulcus, here this is the central branch or the Rolandic branch. After that there is the post-Rolandic or the post-central branch, or it is also called as the anterior parietal branch. Here this is the anterior parietal branch. This is the posterior parietal branch, and this is the posterior temporal branch. So these are the branches arising here from the middle cerebral artery. See that here these branches, they are having the different names in the different books, and they are somewhat variable, and that's why these branches names are different in the different books. So here we can see that here what is the fix, that this in the lateral fissure here, the middle cerebral artery, it runs backwards in the posterior ramus. While going here, it ramifies into number of branches. There are some orbital branches present here. There are the frontopolar branch. Then there is the anterior central branch here, the pre-central branch, central branch, post-central branch. Here the anterior parietal branch, the posterior parietal branch. Here is the anterior and the posterior temporal branches are there. Okay, so these are the different branches by which the middle cerebral artery, it supplies most of the superolateral surface. It supplies the most of the superolateral surface. In the picture here, this is the area is supplied by the middle cerebral artery on the superolateral surface. most of the superolateral surface excluding a strip which is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery, and this rest of the yellow area it is supplied by the posterior cerebral artery. Okay, so here this is the large area supplied by the middle cerebral artery. Okay, now we have to correlate here what are the functional areas supplied by these different arteries. Okay, so on the superolateral surface, the most of these areas present here, these are supplied by the middle cerebral artery. Here the Broca's area of speech, the Wernicke's area of the speech, the sensory motor area, the premotor area, the frontal eye field, these are the supplied by this middle cerebral artery on the superolateral surface. On the medial surface, now small area, that is the uncus, is supplied by the middle cerebral artery, and on the inferior surface here, the orbital surface, temporal pole, as well as this uncus, this anterior end of the inferior surface, temporal pole, along with the temporal pole, that is supplied by the middle cerebral artery. Okay, so this is the supply from the middle cerebral artery. From the cortical branches, now the central branches arising from the middle cerebral artery, they supply the lentiform nucleus and caudate nucleus, genu, posterior limb of the internal capsule. These are called as lenticulostriate arteries. Here in the picture, this is the coronal section passing through the cerebrum. Here this is the lateral sulcus. In the lateral sulcus, here this is the middle cerebral artery. This is the initial portion, the proximal part of the middle cerebral artery. It gives numerous small branches. These are the central branches. These are called as lenticulostriate arteries. Out of this lenticulostriate artery, this is one of the large branch present here, that is called as the Charcot's artery of hemorrhage. That is a Charcot's artery of hemorrhage. It shows the hemorrhage commonly, so it is called as Charcot's artery of hemorrhage. Okay, so these are the central branches. They are supplying here the caudate nucleus, lentiform nucleus, and the internal capsule. Okay, we have seen the middle cerebral artery. I'll discuss about the anterior choroidal artery. The anterior choroidal artery passes backwards, enters the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle, and ends in the choroid plexus. It supplies the lateral geniculate body, posterior limb of the internal capsule, middle 3/5 of the crus cerebri, and the globus pallidus. Okay, so we have seen here the anterior choroidal artery in the picture. This is the anterior choroidal artery supplying the choroid plexus, forming the choroid plexus. The next branch present there, that is the posterior communicating artery. In the picture here, this is the posterior communicating artery. Here, this is the posterior communicating artery. So, this is the main channel which connects the internal carotid arterial system with the vertebrobasilar arterial system. Okay, so next branch we will discuss about the vertebral artery. So, we have seen the 4 branches arising from the internal carotid artery. The 5th branch, that is ophthalmic, that we are not going to study as we have already studied it. Now, the vertebral artery. In this arterial skeleton here, this is the vertebral artery arising from the subclavian artery. Okay, so here this is the vertebral artery and it meets with the opposite side after entering in the cranial cavity in the foramen magnum and forms the basilar artery. Okay, so we will see in this picture that the vertebral artery, here this is the vertebral artery. There are the 4 parts of the vertebral artery: the cervical part, vertebral part, suboccipital part, and cerebral part. Okay, so here the first part present there, this is the first part, that it takes origin from the subclavian artery, from the first part of the subclavian artery. It enters the sclerovertebral triangle, then it passes up to the foramen transposorium of the 6th cervical vertebra. Okay, so that is the first part, the cervical part of the vertebral artery. Then the second part is the vertical part. It passes through the foramen transposorium of the upper 6 cervical vertebrae. that is the foramen transversarum of the upper 6 cervical vertebrae. Here it ends at the foramen transversarum of the atlas, then it shows its horizontal part. It enters through this suboccipital triangle, so it is called as the suboccipital part. Okay, so this is the third or the suboccipital part. It is also called as a horizontal part. After that, the artery enters within the cranial cavity via the foramen magnum, and it meets with the opposite side and forms the basilar artery. Okay, so here this is the fourth part. It is meeting with the opposite side and it forms the basilar artery. It meets with the opposite side at the lower border of the pons and the upper border of the medulla. At the pontomedullary junction, there is the formation of the basilar artery. There is the end of the vertebral artery by uniting with the opposite side. These are the 5 branches arising from the vertebral artery. The first one, that is the anterior spinal artery. Second is the posterior spinal artery. Meningeal branches are there, bulbar branches, and the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. So here the posterior inferior cerebellar artery, it is the largest branch arising from the vertebral artery. We will see one by one. First, the anterior spinal artery. The anterior spinal artery formed from the Y-shaped union of a branch from the each vertebral artery. Okay, so here in the picture, this is the Y-shaped union of the two anterior spinal artery taking origin from the vertebral artery. So here the anterior spinal artery, it runs downwards the ventral median fissure of the spinal cord and it supplies the ventral 2/3 part of the spinal cord. Okay, now the next branch, that is the posterior spinal arteries. The posterior spinal arteries are the two branches from the vertebral artery. They run through the posterolateral sulcus, dorsolateral sulcus of the spinal cord to supply the dorsal 1/3 of the spinal cord. Okay, so here this is the small picture that we can find out here, the distribution of the anterior spinal artery as well as the posterior spinal artery. So this is the anterior 2/3 of the spinal cord supplied by the anterior spinal artery, and this is the posterior 1/3 which is supplied by the posterior spinal artery. Okay, now the meningeal branches. The meningeal branches, these are the smaller branches. Here in the picture, one can find out here, this is labeled here MN. So here this is the vertebral artery. From the vertebral artery, these meningeal branches, they take origin. The posterior meningeal branches, these are 1 or 2 in number, that originate from the vertebral arteries opposite the foramen magnum, and these branches move into the dura mater to supply it. Okay, so these are the meningeal arteries. The next are the bulbar arteries. The bulbar arteries, that means these are the medullary branches. So here this M letter is showing the medullary branches. These branches are composed of several smaller arteries which originate from the vertebral artery or from its branches. Okay, so here these are the smaller medullary branches arise from the vertebral artery. The last one, that is the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. That is the largest branch arising from the vertebral artery. So here in the picture, we will see that here, this is the vertebral artery. Okay, so vertebral artery, it is up to the pontomedullary junction. This is the pons, this is the medulla oblongata. So here at the pontomedullary junction, here this is the vertebral artery uniting with the opposite side, and here there is the formation of the basilar artery. Okay, so the largest of all the branches of the vertebral artery, here this is the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. It arises at the caudal end of the medulla, here at the caudal end of the medulla on either side. Then it runs a course winding between the medulla and that of the cerebellum. Its area of distribution is the posterior part of the cerebellar hemisphere, the inferior vermis, the central nuclei of the cerebellum, the choroid plexus of the fourth ventricle, and the medullary branches to the dorsolateral medulla. Okay, so we have seen the branches arising from the vertebral artery. Now we will discuss about the next, that is the basilar artery. Okay, so this is the basilar artery. The basilar artery is formed by the union of the two vertebral arteries at the pontomedullary junction. Then it runs in the pontine median sulcus, that is called as the basilar sulcus, at the ventral aspect of the pons. Then this basilar artery, it terminates into two posterior cerebral arteries. Just after this ponto-mesencephalic junction, there are the posterior cerebral artery. There is the termination of the basilar artery into two posterior cerebral arteries. Okay, so branches arising from the basilar artery are the anterior inferior cerebellar artery, labyrinthine artery, pontine arteries, then the superior cerebellar artery and the posterior cerebral arteries. Okay, so here this is the first branch, that is the anterior inferior cerebellar artery. Just after this, here there is the next branch, that is the labyrinthine artery. These smaller branches on either side, these are the pontine branches. Here at the ponto-mesencephalic junction, here these branches are there. These are the superior cerebellar artery, and lastly the posterior cerebral arteries. Here these posterior cerebral arteries, these are the terminal branches of the basilar artery. One by one we'll see here the anterior inferior cerebellar artery. Here in the picture, this one is the anterior inferior cerebellar artery. The anterior inferior cerebellar arteries originate near the lower border of the pons, just past the union of the vertebral arteries. Then they supplies the area of the anterior inferior surface underlying the white matter of the cerebellum. It contributes to supply the central cerebellar nuclei. They also contribute to the upper part of the medulla and the lower part of the pons. Okay, so here this part is present here. So the lower part of the medulla, lower part of the pons, upper part of the medulla, and as per the name, it supplies the anterior inferior aspect of the cerebellum. Next artery present here, that is the labyrinthine artery. The labyrinthine artery is variable in its origin. It supplies the region of the inner ear. We have seen this artery, the labyrinthine artery. It passes here. It passes through the internal acoustic meatus, along with the 7th and 8th cranial nerve. In the picture here, this is the labyrinthine artery. Just after this anterior inferior cerebellar artery, the next artery originates from the basilar artery, that is the labyrinthine artery. Okay, next there are the pontine branches. Here these are the smaller pontine branches arising from the basilar artery, from the basilar sulcus of the pons. The pontine arteries, these are numerous smaller branches that can be subdivided into paramedian and circumferential pontine arteries. The circumferential arteries can be further subdivided into long and short pontine branches. The paramedian pontine branches supplies the basal pons. The circumferential pontine branches supplies the lateral part of the pons, and the middle cerebellar peduncle and floor of the fourth ventricle and pontine tegmentum. Okay, so this area present here, these are supplied by the pons, the circumferential branches, the long and the short branches. Next is the superior cerebellar artery. Superior cerebellar arteries originate near the end of the basilar artery, close to the pontomesencephalic junction. It runs along the dorsal surface of the cerebellum. It supplies the cerebellar cortex, white matter and the central nuclei. Additional contribution to the rostral pontine tegmentum, superior cerebellar peduncle and the inferior colliculus. So as per the name here, the superior cerebellar artery, it supplies the superior surface of the cerebellum. Here this is the superior cerebellar artery. Okay, so at the pontomesencephalic junction, this is the pons and this is the midbrain. So at the junction of these two, here there is the origin of the superior cerebellar artery. The superior cerebellar artery is the second largest branch of the basilar artery. It runs on either side. It winds around this pons at the midbrain. Then it is just below here the posterior cerebral artery. In between these two, there is the presence of this third cranial nerve, the oculomotor nerve arises here in between. So this superior cerebral artery, it winds around laterally and it also supplies the midbrain, and as per the name, it supplies the cerebellum, the superior surface. The last branch arising from the basilar artery, that is the posterior cerebral artery. These are the terminal branches arising from the basilar artery. This is the basilar artery, these are the terminal branches, these are the posterior cerebral arteries. Okay, so these are the posterior cerebral artery, they wind round, the arches here, they wind round the midbrain and they supply most of the inferior surface of the cerebrum. Here this is the posterior cerebral artery supplying here, ramifying here on the inferior surface of the cerebrum. Okay, so this portion present here, the posterior cerebral artery, it is divided into two parts, the pre-communicating segment and post-communicating segment by this posterior communicating artery. It also gives central branches and that of the cortical branches. So posterior cerebral arteries are the terminal branches of the basilar artery. They appear as the bifurcation of the basilar artery just past the superior cerebellar arteries and the oculomotor nerve. They curve around the midbrain and reaches the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere beneath the splenium of the corpus callosum. So here in the picture we can see that here this is the basilar artery. There is the last branch of the basilar artery, that is the posterior cerebral artery. So this posterior cerebral artery, it is winding around over here and it supplies here, it goes towards the inferior surface, and here this is the termination of the posterior cerebral artery into this calloso-marginal branch and that of the calcarine branch. Okay, so these are the cortical branches arising from the posterior cerebral artery. These are the posterior temporal branch, then the internal occipital branch. The internal occipital branch divides into the parieto-occipital branch and the calcarine branch. Okay, so here in the picture, this is the posterior cerebral artery. It is coming over here. It is giving here the temporal branches, and then here this is the parieto-occipital branch and this is the calcarine branch, by which it supplies most of the inferior surface and that of the occipital lobe of the medial surface as well as the superolateral surface. Here these are the three pictures, the three views of the cerebrum. On the superolateral surface it supplies this occipital lobe and also that of the inferior temporal gyrus. On the inferior surface it supplies most of this tentorial surface excluding this temporal pole, and on the medial surface it supplies this the area of cuneus and precuneus. So again this is the visual area. On the inferior surface here, this is the part supplied by the posterior cerebral arteries. Okay, so we have seen the 15 branches arising from these three main arteries forming the circle of Willis. Here in the picture, this is the posterior cerebral artery. It is winding around the midbrain, here the cerebral peduncle, and it is also giving here this branch which is going to the choroid plexus. These are the cortical branches. The central branch is present there. The central branches supply the dorsal thalamus, medial and lateral geniculate bodies, hypothalamus and subthalamus. Okay, so here these are the branches, these are the central branches arising from this posterior cerebral artery. Here these are also supplying here these geniculate bodies, the medial and the lateral geniculate bodies, and this is the area of the hypothalamus and the subthalamus. Okay, so we have seen here the central branches as well as the cortical branches of the posterior cerebral artery. We have seen all the 15 branches arising from the three main arteries. Now we will discuss about the central branches arising from the circle of Willis. So central branches are numerous branches. These are thin slanted branches. These are also called as the perforating branches. They supply the centrally located parts of the cerebrum. They supply the corpus striatum, internal capsule, and they are also called as the end arteries. The central arteries arise in the region of the arterial circle of Willis and are arranged into 4 groups. So here in the picture, here this is the interpeduncular fossa, this is the circle of Willis, and the circle of Willis are giving here these thin slender branches called as the central branches, or also called as the perforating branches. They are arranged in 4 groups. These 4 groups are the anteromedial group, This is the anteromedial group. These are the anterolateral group. Next is the posteromedial group and the posterolateral group. Here this is the posteromedial group, and there is the posterolateral group. This anteromedial group, it enters the anterior perforated substance. This anteromedial group, it enters the anterior perforated substance. It is mainly formed by the anterior cerebral arteries and the anterior communicating artery. It supplies the anterior limb of the internal capsule, the corpus striatum and the anterior hypothalamus. The anterolateral group, this one, the anterolateral group, it is the mainly formed by the middle cerebral artery. It also pierces the anterior perforated substance to supply the anterior limb of the internal capsule. Then there is the posteromedial group. The posteromedial group, mainly it arises from the posterior cerebral artery and also from that of the posterior communicating arteries. It supplies the thalamus and subthalamus. Then there is the posterolateral group. The posterolateral group, it is only formed by the posterior cerebral artery. It supplies the thalamus, including the geniculate bodies, caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus. Okay, so we have seen here the cortical branches as well as the central branches arising from the circle of Willis and its main branches. Okay, now we will discuss about the regional arterial supply of the brain. First, about the cerebrum, we have seen the cortical arteries. The cortical arteries, these are the anterior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery and the posterior cerebral artery. How they supply the cerebrum? So all these three cortical branches, they supply all the three surfaces of the cerebrum. The anterior cerebral artery mainly supplies the medial surface. The middle cerebral artery supplies mainly the superolateral surface and posterior cerebral artery mainly supplies the inferior surface. Then there are the central arteries and the choroidal arteries. Here these are the central arteries arranged in 4 groups. Just now we have discussed about the central arteries. Now these are the choroidal arteries. This is the anterior choroidal artery arising from the internal carotid artery, and this is the posterior choroidal artery arising from the posterior cerebral artery. Enters within the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle and forms the choroid plexus. Now the diencephalon is supplied by the central branches arising from the posterior communicating artery. Here this is the area of the diencephalon. It is supplied by the posterior communicating artery as well as the posterior cerebral artery and also from that of the basilar artery. Next is the midbrain. Here this is the midbrain. The midbrain is mainly supplied by this posterior cerebral artery and that of the superior cerebellar artery. Along with that, the small portion is supplied by the basilar artery. The pons is supplied by the pontine branches from the basilar artery. Then it is also supplied by the superior cerebellar artery above, and the inferiorly there is the anterior inferior cerebellar artery. Here these are supplied by these are the branches supplying the pons. Then there is the medulla oblongata. Here this is the medulla oblongata. It is supplied by the 2 vertebral arteries. Here the vertebral arteries, 2 anterior and posterior spinal arteries, 2 anterior and posterior inferior cerebellar arteries and that of the basilar artery. Here these are the vertebral arteries, the anterior and posterior spinal artery. This is the anterior inferior cerebellar artery and this one is the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. So all these branches here, these are supplying the medulla oblongata. Then lastly the cerebellum. Cerebellum, it is supplied by the superior cerebellar arteries anterior inferior cerebellar arteries and the posterior inferior cerebellar arteries. Okay, now the veins present there, the venous drainage, it is by the superficial cerebral veins and the deep cerebral veins. So these in the picture, whatever the arteries present there, these are the superficial cerebral arteries. The peculiarity of the veins of the brain that these are the thin walled, the muscular tissue is not there in the vein, and that of the valves are absent in the veins, and these veins, they doesn't accompany the arteries. They are the large dilated venous spaces, that is the subdural spaces. They drain the blood from the cortex and the subcortical substance and empty into the adjacent sinuses. Okay, so here these are the superficial cerebral veins. These superficial cerebral veins, they drain into the adjacent sinuses. So here these veins, they are draining here into the superior sagittal sinus. Here this vein present here, this is called as the superficial middle cerebral vein. It runs in the lateral sulcus and it is connected here with the superior sagittal sinus by the superior anastomotic vein and the inferior anastomotic vein. The superior anastomotic vein, it is called as the superior anastomotic vein of Trollard. Here this is the superior anastomotic vein of Trollard, and here this is the inferior anastomotic vein of the Labbé. Okay, so these are the veins, these are the superior cerebral veins drain into the superior sagittal sinus, and the middle cerebral vein here draining here into this superficial middle cerebral vein, which is connected here with these sinuses. All these veins ultimately drain here into the sigmoid sinus. You are knowing the different cranial venous sinuses here. Ultimately all the venous blood, it enters here, it is get collected here into the sigmoid sinus. Sigmoid sinus, it is continuous here with the internal jugular vein. Okay, so that is the venous drainage present there. These are the superficial vein that we have seen here. The deep veins present there, these are many numbers, these deep veins present there. These deep veins, they drain most of the inferior surface, the deeper parts of the cerebral hemisphere. Then they are forming the basal vein. Here this is the basal vein present here, this is the basal vein. They drain here the deeper substances present there, the basal nuclei, the internal capsule, diencephalon and the choroid plexus. Ultimately all these venous drainage, they get collected here into this great cerebral vein of Galen. See that here, this is the basal vein. This basal vein is formed here by these septal veins. Then this is the anterior vein and these are the choroidal veins. They join together to form these basal veins. These basal veins, they get connected here with the internal cerebral vein, and these veins, these are joined together and they are forming here the great cerebral vein of Galen. This great cerebral vein of Galen, it meets with the inferior sagittal sinus and it forms the straight sinus. Straight sinus drains into, meets here at the confluence of sinuses and then it mixes with the other venous sinuses. Ultimately there is a formation of the sigmoid sinus which is continuous with the internal jugular vein. Okay, so this is regarding the venous drainage of the brain. We'll discuss about the structure of the blood-brain barrier. That is the important barrier. It is a semi-permeable membrane. It is a protective covering. It only allows the gaseous exchange. It is formed by the capillary endothelial cells. Here, these are the capillary endothelial cells and the tight junction between them. A basement membrane on which the capillary endothelial cells are arranged, and there are the foot processes of the astrocytes. Here these are the structures present there. These are the capillary endothelial cells. After that here there is the basement membrane. After the basement membrane here there is the foot process of the astrocyte. So these structures form the blood-brain barrier. Now these are the areas, these are devoid of the blood-brain barrier, the pineal gland, posterior lobe of the pituitary, the tuber cinereum, wall of the supraoptic recesses of the third ventricle and the area postrema. Discuss about the applied part. Here every surgery performed at the base of the brain, that it requires the knowledge of the circle of Willis. The surgeon has to follow or has to work on the circle of Willis. So the circle of Willis has the great surgical importance that see that here this is the tumor present there. If one has to follow here this surgery, the surgeon has to work here on the circle of Willis and its branches. So one should know the normal part of the circle of Willis and what are the variations of the circle of Willis. So the variations of the circle of Willis are very common. They are present in 33% of cases. See that here these are the different types of the circulus arteriosus. There are the 23 different types of the circulus arteriosus, of the different components of the circulus arteriosus. We are not going to study all these ones, but we should know that on an average there are the 33% of variations of the circulus arteriosus are seen. That means every third person present there, it may show the variations in the circle of Willis. And this circle of Willis and its branches are very important for every surgery, so that we should know that what are the different variations present there, and the surgery should be followed by the angiography. Okay, so here few of the variations of the circle of Willis. Now this circle of Willis present here, this is the deficient or the incomplete circulus arteriosus. Here this is the incomplete circulus arteriosus. This segment is absent here. Okay, this segment is absent here. So this is the incomplete circulus arteriosus. So in if the circle of Willis is normal, so there is no mixing of the blood of the opposite side. And the circle of Willis, it forms the collateral channel. But many a times the circle of Willis, it may remain absent, or the deficient circle of Willis may be present. Now these general variations of the circle of Willis, we'll see only the general variations. General variations are the aplasia, hypoplasia, duplication and fenestration. Okay, so here this is the aplasia. Here this portion present here, this portion is not developed. That is the aplasia of the circulus arteriosus. This is the hypoplasia present there. Here one can find out the thin thread-like vessels present there. Okay, so these thin thread-like vessels, these are called as hypoplastic vessels, hypoplasia. So in hypoplasia, there are the more chances of the formation of the blood clot. There is hypoplasia. There is the most commonly seen variation of the circle of Willis. This is the fenestration. It is least commonly seen. Lastly, here the duplication of the circle of Willis, that vessels may get duplicated here like this. This is the anterior cerebral artery present there, anterior cerebral artery, duplication is seen here. So just like that, the variations may be there at any component of the circle of Willis. The next variation or the anomaly seen here, these are the aneurysms. So aneurysms are very commonly seen or developed in the cerebral arteries regarding the circle of Willis. So what is this aneurysm? These are the dilatation or the swelling, ballooning is seen from the arteries. Okay, so this is regarding that thin wall of the arteries, it becomes thin, it shows the outpouching called as aneurysm. So the blood passing through this, it may rupture this thin wall of the artery at the site of this aneurysm, forming the hemorrhage. These are the most commonly seen sites of the cerebral aneurysm. This aneurysm can be divided like that of the shape of the aneurysm. So this is the Berry aneurysm. At the middle cerebral artery it is there. This is the internal carotid artery and this is the middle cerebral artery. This is the berry-like aneurysm of the internal cerebral artery. The aneurysm can be saccular, it can be fusiform. This berry aneurysm, it is common at the proximal parts of the circle of Willis, branches of the circle of Willis. Now the central arteries, these are the lenticulostriate arteries or the central arteries. These are showing here the microaneurysm. The aneurysm can be burst and it shows the subarachnoid hemorrhage. This is the arteriovenous malformation, and this is the intracerebral hemorrhage. These are the most common sites of the sources of the intracerebral hemorrhage. This is the ischemic stroke. It shows the insufficiency of the oxygen due to the blood clot present in the artery. Here this is the blood clot. It shows the insufficiency of the blood supply. The effect of occlusion of the anterior cerebral artery. It shows the paralysis or the weakness of the muscles of the leg and foot of the opposite side. So contralateral hemiplegia may be there in occlusion of the anterior cerebral artery. It is due to the involvement of the upper part of the motor area. So this red one, this is the upper part of the motor area. It is regarding that of the leg and foot. So there will be the paralysis of the muscles of the leg and foot. Next, it will show the loss of sensation of the from the leg and foot of the opposite. So contralateral hemianesthesia will be there in the occlusion of the anterior cerebral artery. This is due to the supply of the anterior cerebral artery for this area. The post-central gyrus at the paracentral lobule. Then there will be the sense of the stereognosis is impaired due to the involvement of the superior parietal lobule, the upper part of the superior parietal lobule and that of the medial surface. This is the area for the stereognosis. There will be the personality changes due to the involvement of the frontal lobe, that medial frontal gyrus. This is the personality area, and this is the superior parietal lobule for the area for the stereognosis. It will be impaired in the effect of occlusion of the anterior cerebral artery. Now I'll discuss about the middle cerebral artery, its occlusion effect. It will show the hemiplegia and loss of sensations of the opposite half of the body. The face and arms are most affected. The foot and leg are spared as they are supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. So middle cerebral artery, it supplies this area. Aphasia, that is the in this condition the communication of the patient will be lost. It is due to the involvement of the Broca's area and that of the Wernicke's area. Broca's area, that is the sensory speech area, and Wernicke's area, Broca's area is the motor speech area and the Wernicke's area is the sensory speech area. So these two areas are involved, so person can't communicate at all. Only the person will communicate with the eyes. Okay, so that is the condition called as aphasia, especially if the thrombosis is in the left hemisphere in the right-handed person. So these areas, Broca's area and that of the Wernicke's area, they are present in the mostly in the left hemisphere in the right-handed person. Okay, so this artery, if it is occlude here, the left-sided artery, then it will show the aphasia. Yeah, so here this is the motor area of the speech, Broca's area, and here is the sensory speech area, Wernicke's area of speech. Then there will be the homonymous hemianopia of the opposite side due to the involvement of the optic radiation, and hearing may be affected, but this will be compensated by the opposite hemisphere. Lastly, the effect of occlusion of the posterior cerebral artery. The loss of the cortical supply results in the contralateral homonymous hemianopia with the macular sparing. The damage to the association cortex of the visual area causes the visual hallucination, that is the distortion of the color vision. The macular vision is spared due to the collateral circulation from the middle cerebral artery. Okay, so only the visual area will get affected. Rest of the area, that macular vision, it is spared. Now lastly here in this minimal invasive procedures here, this is the aneurysm recoiling.
So this artery in the brain is connected to the leg artery. So we puncture the leg artery by a small hole maybe of 2 millimeter, and we pass a wire and catheter from the leg.
Okay, so this is the aneurysm recoiling. This is the aneurysm clipping. And this is the clot removal procedure. These are the number of techniques. Okay, that's it. Thank you.